In today's video, we're going to be talking about the differences between ESTJs and ISTJs using a real life case example that I think you guys will find interesting. So Soup Timmy, he's a Rubik's Cube YouTuber with over 2.5 million subscribers. And last year I met him at this YouTuber conference. And when we were talking about personality types, he told me online his personality types results told him he was an ISTJ personality type, but that he had no idea what that meant. And so while we were standing around, I was like, okay, well, do you relate to this? Do you relate to this? I started telling him some things about ISTJ personality types, and he was completely mind blown. He was like, oh my gosh, you just perfectly described me from just 4 letters. How did you do that? And I was like, all right, cool. Seems like you probably are an ISTJ. Yeah, he seems introverted. Rubik's Cubes, having to memorize all these different details, steps, algorithms to be able to strategically do the cube more and more efficiently. Yeah, sure. ISTJ makes sense to me. Fast forward a little bit, 2 things happen. Timmy goes on a YouTube dating show and is featured in this video that shows a whole bunch more sides of his personality.
It's gonna be really tough for me because I never really experienced it. I don't know this person at all. I've never seen their face. I don't know their Instagram. I can't do any research on them. I don't know anything about them.
And then 2, my colleague Z and I, we have a 2-hour coaching call with Timmy, helping him get some advice about how he can connect better with other people using his personality type. And after that call, this is when things got a little interesting because out of nowhere, he was like, after watching that dating video and talking with him, have you ever thought about Timmy maybe being an ESTJ personality type instead? And I was like, actually, I didn't double check that possibility. I didn't even think about that in the moment. And now that you mention it, ESTJ actually could be a possibility for the reasons that we're going to be unpacking for you guys in today's video. Before we start, I did want to let you know that if you enjoyed today's video, you can catch the full extended version on my new website, which also includes our full reaction to Timmy's dating show video, as well as an hour-long interview we did with Soup Timmy to confirm and double check what his personality type is. All right, enough talking. ESTJ versus ISTJ, let's get right into it. If you were to give an overview of some reasons why you felt Timmy might not be an ISTJ, what were some things that were coming to mind for you?
Okay, apart from the interaction, the first time I really saw him was on Anthony's channel when you and Timmy were on his podcast, and kind of already noticed there how he was really comfortable with adjusting in that moment, I know he's a YouTuber, so I thought, okay, well, maybe he's just used to being around YouTubers and camera, etc. But the fact that he could be very willing to jump in to that was really interesting, because obviously ISTJ would want to have more information to understand what's going on beforehand. But maybe I thought maybe he does have the experience already, so it's not a question mark for him.
So I'm looking for a girl that loves learning. I haven't had like a girlfriend or anything, but this is going to be my second date ever. I watched Anthony's channel and I learned a lot. You need to be really authentic with the date and not just faking it.
Watching the dating show earlier and then seeing that comparison where he said he's not really ever dated before, and him again doing that, jumping in quite easily to things without needing to really take some time.
Yeah, sort of having okay, let's just try it, see what happens, or I can learn attitude about it, where ISTJs, because of their functions, they're just very naturally cautious and wanting to gather more before jumping into things, or wanting to really think things through or know about it, know the details about things before, just in general, jumping into new things can sometimes freak them out.
Yeah, and then on our call with him, when we were giving him a lot of the type advice, I could see the interaction with him, and there was really more of a extroverted thinking and extroverted intuition bounce that I could see, where he really, again, knows how to interact or engage it quickly. And he asked a lot of questions on how to get the job done, how to progress. Progression was really a big question, which is what TE would do in either auxiliary or dominant, but he was really using extroverted intuition a lot in how he was a little bit more performative, because with extroverted intuition on the third slot, it wants to maybe perform a little, be a little bit goofy, and, be a little bit more happy to just throw things out there the way extroverted intuition does. Whereas ISTJ would use extroverted intuition, but more sparingly or maybe more carefully, and perhaps thinking about it more. But the way he shows up a lot in even his interaction with Anthony, it's that kind of TENE bounce where he's using a lot of goofy humor, sometimes maybe a little bit, borderline questionably appropriate with his jokes to kind of see how he can, be funny, which can be shown with how extroverted thinking will find being funny as a resource or useful tool, and then using extroverted intuition to, throw something out there and see what comes back. Because extroverted intuition really likes to explore or experiment with, I'm going to throw something out there, see what possibilities come back to me. That's kind of way extroverted intuition likes to pop up for anyone with extroverted intuition, but especially when it's an extrovert like that uses TENE already and NE, they'll be using that kind of together.
She's my type for looks.
Why?
She's my type.
But why? What makes her your type?
She's Asian. I don't think that's the right answer for the camera, but that's what I like.
So any Asian woman would be...
No. I like I don't know how to describe it. She has the shape.
In simple terms, sort of, it's like with an ISTJ, you actually see them using quite a bit of SI and FI together very naturally. And so there's this sort of bit where they're liking to think things through, and they sort of express their personal opinion or perspective a little bit in some ways, like through their cautiousness. Whereas with ESTJs, you see a lot of TE and NE working together, where it's sort of like, oh, let's jump into this, let's try it, let's progress with this. You see them pushing a little bit more. And honestly, with Timmy, I kept rewinding through all of my interactions with him. I actually don't feel like I've seen very many strong examples of him being super, super cautious in the ISTJ personality type way. And if you hear him and talk with him, it really is TE that you see from him. Like a lot.
A lot of things I noticed that we worked on that was not happening. For instance, even just talking about the tutoring thing. She goes, oh, I work with kids. And then you were like, oh, I tutored Rubik's Cube. And you talked about the logistics of what happened. Do you remember? Mm-hmm. Oh, kids would do this, kids would do this. But guess what? Anybody that teaches anybody things, yeah, kids did this, but I want to know who Timmy is.
Knowing him behind the scenes too, he's super, super work focused, and he just churns out content because once he found out the formula, even him, he's like, oh, you want to do YouTube shorts? Well, here's the formula for how it'll work. You should start it like this, then this, then this, then this. Whenever there's something that he sees could be useful, he sort of just jumps in with it. Like even this personality type stuff, he was like, wait, you're telling me you could tell me about your person? Okay, wait, blah, blah, blah. He's like, can you tell me right now? Oh, you can give me advice for how to connect with girls that might be personalized to me? Okay, cool. Can you give it to me? How about tomorrow? He is actually pretty on the fast side. And for some extra anecdotes, also, I saw him behind the scenes at the convention, and he was really trying a lot of new stuff and being quite open to meet people or just oh, there's a party, a gathering over here. Let's just go. Well, what about this one? Let's try that one too. And again, he still has a cautious side, but you could, I don't know, he had this quickness about him, this, as you said, ability to adjust and jump into things sometimes, especially if he found it was useful, that I didn't really see that pulling back and withdrawing and being like, wait, I need to know that a little bit more. I need to research that a little bit more. I think one thing that was coming to mind for me when you were saying that, Serene, was I've noticed with ISTJs, sometimes they will blurt out little things, like those little dad jokes or little things, but it's, you also along the way hear their individuality a little bit. You hear their FI pop out a little bit, or they're sort of expressing their personal feelings or opinions about things in that a little more easily. Whereas with Timmy, it seemed like he was just saying stuff and throwing things out there, not really to express himself. More like almost matter of fact, like just
Yeah, actually, that's one of the things when I was kind of watching him do that TENE bounce, goofy, performative thing. I was like, where is the SIFI? Like, where's your introverted sensing, introverted feeling? And it was really actually very hard to see. ISTJs, not all ISTJs are cautious. Like, ISTJs can also be very explorative and curious. The difference with ISTJ and ESTJ is that at the extroverted thinking position, there really is a value to getting things done or doing things. That is just what it is. And so when you see that in the dominant position, it's mostly really going to prioritize that more than anything. Meaning, if you compare it to an ISTJ, it's not that ISTJs are only cautious, it's that compared to the ESTJ is like, let's just do it. What's going to get the job done, or what's going to be the most effective? And if you compare it to an ISTJ is going to kind of measure things a bit more, or quality control things a little bit more, or just watch out for experiences that they've had a bit more to, predict or kind of be careful of that. So
nice.
There's a difference in how they interact with it.
Great point. So it's more like in comparison to each other.
Yeah.
They can both be action oriented, but you're going to see the flavor pop out differently because
extroverted thinking wants to, its priorities to let's get it done. Let's get the job done. I'm going to be able to do this, and we're going to be all able to do this, and whatever it takes, let's do it. But introverted sensing doesn't. Within ISTJ, they're prioritizing, checking, quality controlling, improving, optimizing as well, like to keep going with a good experience. So it's not that they're cautious, but that's how their introversion preference pops out.
Quality control, personal checking to maintain the or personal checking, personal knowing for the quality control, which is possibly why they also have that a little bit of that gather heavy flavor to them too sometimes.
Yes, because they're perceiving dominant. So
taking things
perceiving dominant versus judging dominant. Let me just take in first, let me watch what's going on, versus extroverted thinking where it's like, extroverted thinking is very decisive. All right, that's what they're very good at, is decision making. But in the moment.
Yeah, something I've noticed a lot with ETJ personality types, they think about how a lot, like how can this work, how can this happen. That judging, that problem solving is just always organizing. Replaying things. Timmy, when he was gathering instructions, he was actually pretty quick to implement, not checking it so much, but more just going, okay, what are the instructions, how can this work, how can we get this done, versus, as you said, trying to get a more in-depth understanding.
Like, have I experienced this before? Have I not? Is this a new thing, or is this something I've seen before?
Built the next generation of
boring. What did that feel like?
It felt good. It felt like I'm helping the world.
Okay,
I mean,
none of these helping the world bullshit.
Would you say in general you're an emotional person?
Ooh, emotional. What's the other option? Intelligent? IQ or EQ?
Oh my god.